everybody, and welcome to another episode of Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. As always, a delight to have each and every one of you with us here for the show. We've got a good one coming up for you. We're going to visit with Jan Halen, a driver that made a big splash when he came from his native Belgium to race in the United States, going right into the top level of open wheel racing in the U.S. and has since become a fixture in GT racing in sports car endurance competition. We're also going to be hearing from Ricky Taylor, speaking of a fixture in the sport, born into a championship winning family and has continued that pedigree to great success on the cusp of maybe winning another prototype championship in IMSA. But we're going to kick things off with a visit for some special guest analysis with Jeremy Shaw. Now, Jeremy has been covering motorsports for many, many years. He's raced. He's a recent winner of the RRDC, the Road Racing Drivers Club Bob Aiken Award, and he has tremendous insights on the history and the importance of the Petit Le Mans. Since that event is coming up as IMSA season finale next weekend, we thought, what better time and what better gentleman to catch up on that event with. So, with no further ado, let's check in with Jeremy Shaw. Jeremy, once again, it's time for us to be heading into the season finale at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, the Motul Petit Le Mans. And absolutely wonderful to have you with us here. Obviously, you and I have been in some shape or form almost since the very inception of this great race, have been calling it. And can't think of anybody better to have with us here to sort of set the stage for what we're going to be seeing here. But I think maybe to set the stage, we need to dip back in time and sort of discuss how it came into being. I mean, it was basically, wasn't it, Dr. Don Panos who created it. It was his answer to the dilemmas that the world of sports car racing in the United States was facing and trying to come up with that unique connection to the legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Greg. And great to be with you again, by the way. It's been a little while, so good to be back and super to be on the show. Look, I mean, sports car racing has been through some ups and downs over the years, as have all sorts of racings. I mean, everything is cyclical, isn't it, in this business, as we both know very, very well indeed, for various reasons. And back in the late 90s, Don Panos had a vision for sports car racing, particularly in North America. He loved what he'd seen at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and he wanted to kind of create that in this country. And so, his first step to doing that was setting up a mini version of the Le Mans 24 Hours, and that's why it was called Petit Le Mans, Little Le Mans. And from little acorns, big trees do grow.
It debuted in 98, and it was the genesis, really, for what became the American Le Mans Series with the Petit Le Mans as its season-ending headliner, if you will. And in its original years, it wasn't 10 hours. It was 1,000 miles or 10 hours, whichever came first, which gave us some wildly, disparate race times and distances, and then rain and all that factored in. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, there's been a few different iterations over the years, that's for sure. But initially, you're right, it wasn't a round of the championship. It was just a standalone event. And the following year, 1999, was when the American Le Mans Series really kicked off properly. And as you say, initially, the Petit Le Mans, because Daytona, North Sebring were part of the championship in those days. So that was the crown jewel in this championship. And it developed very quickly indeed. I think the LMS very quickly became successful. And it just grew. Manufacturers came involved. The whole event grew in stature. And from very, very early on, Petit Le Mans was something that drivers from around the world wanted to compete in.
From the late 90s, but through the early to mid 2000s, the American Le Mans Series was the premier sports car racing in the planet. I mean, at the time, there was nothing like it. And to have the Petit as that gem, as you said, it really quickly exploded into becoming one of the revered events on the international sports car endurance racing calendar.
Well, it did. As I say, particularly the early 2000s were pretty difficult times, I think, for sports car racing, certainly in this country, because the Grand Am Series came on board in 2001, and everything was kind of fractured. And for a while there were two competing major sports car series, as there had been through the 90s as well, with different owners and people coming in and going out. And it was just a kind of a messy time. But I think the American Le Mans Series kind of was a catalyst towards building a future. And again, Don Panos was very much the man who made everything happen. And ultimately, of course, in 2013, he brought everything together, brought Brandam together as well, along with massive support, and maybe even the guiding light in some of the resurrection was Jim France,
Right.
of the NASCAR Grand Am brand. So by then, Petit Le Mans had become a really big deal. It was very much one of the four major sports car races in the world. There was the Le Mans 24 Hours, the Daytona 24 Hours, and the 12 Hours of Sebring as well. So, the Petit Le Mans was very much the fourth jewel in that crown, if you like.
And Don Pano's vision completely realized at that point the connection to Le Mans, the American Le Mans series. He really had that, his whole concept for the fans was, his slogan and the like. One thing that has remained completely unchanged since that very first Petit Le Mans are the immense challenges involved in surviving the race, let alone winning it. That has remained unchanged, and a lot of it's due to the track itself. Short, wickedly quick, not a lot of long straights, not a lot of easy passing areas. It has always been an immense challenge.
Well, it certainly has. And Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, as it's known now, of course, is one of the great racetracks in the world. I mean, it's very different to the European tracks or the tracks that the World Endurance Car Championship Series races on for most of the season. It's old school. And you talk about Petit Le Mans and then the Le Mans 24 Hours. They're both long distance races, but very, very different in character. Le Mans, it's all about straight line speeds. I mean, the cars are doing well over 200 miles an hour on the Mulsanne straight, even though the straight is now divvied up into three different sections with two chicanes in the middle of it. But there are high speeds at Road Atlanta, but the S is it's like the Porsche curves on steroids, if you like. I mean, it's very, very tricky going down through that section of racetrack, and it means as are the Porsche curves to Le Mans 24 Hours. Patience is a big key to getting success at Petit Le Mans, because if you try and push the limits or try to overtake somebody when you shouldn't do, going down through the S's, your race can come to an end in a pretty big hurry. And we've seen that so many times over the years. And passing traffic is one thing, but it's easy to make a mistake going down there, particularly if it's wet, of course, on your own. Ask Alan McNish, who did it on the out lap, on the formation lap one year, 10 years or so ago, and came back and won the race, incidentally. So, it's a real challenge for a racetrack. It's got everything. It's got tight corners, it's got long straights, it's got good passing zones. It really is a wonderful racetrack and a great way to finish off any season.
And because of those nuances, I think, you take a look at those four legendary races. Le Mans has just the blinding speeds, obviously, in that very long track. But it's the shortest amount of time in a 24-hour race racing at night, because it's usually in June, right? Daytona also speeds. It's got the challenges of the banking and all of that, and long runs at night. Sebring is renowned even for just 12 hours. The bumps make it as physically grueling as a 24-hour race. But I don't think any of those other three even come close to comparing to the mental strain that the Petit Le Mans puts on the drivers at that track with those closing speeds and the like for 10 hours of racing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the weather conditions can vary dramatically, even just during the 10 hours of racing in Georgia, particularly this time of year. Anything can and probably will happen, but those last 3 or 4 hours of darkness is where that really does sort out the men from the boys. And it's such a challenge. I mean, as you talked about the mental challenge there, and that's really, really important, because you have to be on top of your game physically and mentally throughout the race. One minor lapse of concentration, particularly going down through the S's, can end your race very, very quickly. In the same sort of ways as the Porsche curves have become over the years to Le Mans as well. But there's more of a chance to relax on the straightaways at the 24 Hours of Le Mans than there are at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. That is for sure.
Things can happen there that you just never know.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the great things about the IMSA series in general. You're never out of the fight. If you look at the World Endurance Championship, and compare that, for example, to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, the rules are very, very different. In the World Endurance Championship, yeah, some people call it old school. It's just a race. They don't have full course cautions. They don't have wave arounds. They don't have pass bys, anything like that. It's just, if you pull out a lead, you're probably just going to extend that lead during the course of the race. What I love, and what 99% of the drivers absolutely adore about the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, is the fact that with the propensity of full course cautions, it closes up the packet and the race starts again. And for the fans, hey, that's what it's all about. Why are we here? Why are we doing this racing business? We're here to entertain the fans primarily. The manufacturers are there to sell cars, obviously. A lot of the sponsors there to sell their goods. But in order to do so, you have to have fans either coming through the door and or watching on the streaming or the television or whatever it might be. And you want entertainment. And the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship provides entertainment in spades.
Oh, it delivers, no question. Well, let's zero in a little bit on that. Coming into this final round now, 5 different classes that will be running in that race. Only one of them has a lead where it's sizable to where the people that are leading coming in probably are going to win this, and that is in GTD Pro with the FAF Porsche pairing. But the other 4 classes, I mean, DPI, the top 5 are still in it, LMP2, the top 7, LMP3, the top 6, and in GTD, the top 9 are still in this championship, with some margins being down to, in DPI, it's 19 points, Jeremy, after a full season of racing between first and second. IMSA delivers. These are incredibly close races. What's unfolded during the course of the year that's allowed all this to remain this tight coming into the Petite?
Look, the technical team, particularly in DPI and in the GTD, we've just got 2 classes of we've got the prototypes and the GT cars. This year, there's no GTLM, so there's GTD Pro and GTD non-pro, but they're all running the same cars. And the IMSA technical team has just done a fantastic job, I believe, in making sure there is parity among all the different manufacturers. We have 9 different manufacturers in the GT ranks. And on any given day, any one of them can win. I think all of them have had at least a podium finish or a pole or a win or multiple wins. So it's absolutely wide open. And you look at the prototype, the DPIs. Yeah, what a class that has been over the years. And this is going to be the finale for DPI, which is a great shame in some ways. But what a year it's been. Yes, unfortunately, Mazda pulled out at the end of last season. That was disappointing, no doubt about it. But what a battle it has been between Acura and Cadillac. And for most of the season, there's been absolutely nothing to choose between them. With the win last time out, one of the manufacturers has a slight edge, but it could very well end up with those 2 manufacturers tied on points and having to share the championship at the end of the end.
Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing all of your insights on this amazing season thus far and on the history of Petit Le Mans and what we can expect when this 2022 version unfolds. Thanks so much for joining us.
My great pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a while since I've had that kind of a chat with Jeremy Shaw. Absolutely enjoyed every minute of it. Hope you did too. We have a lot more coming up, including when we come back, our visit with Jan Halen here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP.
My name is Sri Banerjee. I'm a rheumatologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and I work at the Penn Vasculitis Center and the Penn Relapsing Polychondritis program. Relapsing polychondritis is a rare multi-system disease. It can affect multiple organs, and because it's so rare and so complex, it involves a group of experts who know about this disease to take good care of these patients. Many of these patients need specialized tests, which can be done in only very few centers, and Penn is one of them. Through the survey data that we have so far from patients with RP, that it significantly affects their life. They're not able to lead normal life. They can't go to work. They cannot have a normal family life. And it also reduces life expectancy. So if we don't do research, to understand the pathology and try to find biomarkers and treatment for this disease, I don't think we will be able to improve the quality of life of these patients. I mean, research needs resources, right? So we need more funding. We do want to see more patients. Patient participation is important. I think we have the expertise here within Penn, and we collaborate very closely with the NIH Relapsing Polychondritis program. With further resources and patient participation, I think this is doable.
Welcome back to Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. As promised, time for us to visit with Jan Halen. As I said, Jan came over from Europe and made a big splash immediately. He has since evolved into one of the top drivers in GT competition in sports car endurance racing, particularly here in the United States. We're going to hear a bit about that, but we're also going to hear about how he managed to take an absolute secondary passion of his and a training regimen and combine it in a business venture that has been absolutely stunningly successful. I think you're going to enjoy it. Here's Jan. Jan, so much for us to really talk about here. We go back a ways, you and I. I've announced your racing for a long time, and I had the pleasure of doing so. A lot of things that I want to touch on, but quickly, normally when a driver, you're from Belgium, normally when a driver comes from Europe to the U.S. to start racing there, they follow, USF 2000 or Atlantic, Formula Atlantics or something more akin to what they've been driving. You're one of the few guys that came over from Europe and immediately started racing in the United States at arguably the top level of open wheel in Indy cars, in Champ Car with Dale Coyne. That must have been one heck of a transition, one coming from Formula 3 and Formula 3000, which you did some racing, and obviously it's very fast stuff, but Indy cars and in North America, big step.
Yeah, that's all good memories. It's something that I've been working towards when I was when I was still racing in Europe. I'd say I knew about 2 years prior to coming to the US that this is where I wanted to end up, and I had a plan, and it took some time to for all of it to come together, but. I was really excited to for all of it to kind of pan out, and for me to get my first step with Dale Coyne here in the US.
What was you said you had a plan, but what was the reason that you wanted to make an attempt to become a racer in North America and make that move? What prompted that?
Well, the honest answer there is that I was really I've been racing in Europe since I was 10 years old, and most of that as a professional driver. And we were lucky, or I was fortunate to have been very successful in all the junior formulas, karting, Formula Ford, Formula 3, all of that, always winning races. And I found myself spending maybe too much time in race control after races, arguing over who had won the race, or what some of the issues were during the race, and it was kind of it became a bit of an old record where after so many years, I was ready for a change and a change of culture more than anything. I was happy to, of course, did my research, and had a good, my good friend Patrick Long, who was a good resource for me as far as bringing me up to speed what racing was like here in the US. And I very, very early on, pretty much from the very beginning when I moved to the US, I could feel that was exactly what I was looking for, and the change that I needed and wanted.
And then in 2008, after you'd done a couple years in Champ Car, you started to do some sports car driving in the U.S. in GT racing. In 2014, that took another leap in a way when you got tied up with what would become a very long association with Wright Motorsports, and racing Porsches. And you've sort of since become known as a Porsche guy. Wright is obviously a top team, but what got you connected with them, and what's allowed it to be such a long-lived relationship?
Yeah, I think the key in all of that has always been Patrick, who he obviously he was he was the Porsche guy here in the US and still is, and he had all the connections, and he was nice enough to put me in touch with a few people, and it took a little, it took some time to get to know the right people, and also to establish myself here in the US as as a GT, as an endurance driver. And then finally, we found the perfect match with Wright Motorsports, and yeah, I've been there for quite some time now, and still, I'd say we're still, the relationship is getting stronger every year, and we're doing more and more things together on and off the track. So I've really enjoyed the last couple of years, especially working with Johnny and his crew.
Well, it's going to be tough for you to beat what unfolded last year in 2021, because you won with Wright Motorsports. You won the Drivers' Championship and the Team Championship in Michelin Pilot Challenge. You won the IMSA Michelin Endurance Challenge, which is the endurance, four-race endurance format with Wright in GT Daytona. And you won the Pirelli World Challenge GT Championship along with the Team Championship. All of those successes allowed you to do something that is very rare, and that's win the the hugely prestigious Porsche Cup Award for what is really awarded to the most successful privateer or independent Porsche driver in the world. That had to be just incredible.
Yeah, what's crazy about that is that it's something that I'd never even looked at it, to be honest, because it was really not on my radar, and also as a professional driver, you have little control over whether you're going to be in a position to win the Porsche Cup. It's all it's driven by results, and even more so by the amount of races that you do in a Porsche. So last year was it was an incredible year for myself, for the team. And yeah, it's a year that'll be hard to beat, but we're on a good path again this year.
You've got a huge race coming up in IMSA, obviously, and you are once again right in the hunt in terms of being able to win the actual GT Daytona Championship this year. After some 9 races, you and Ryan are 57 points out of the lead going into the Petit Le Mans. I mean, it's as close as it can get when you think about it's 350 points to win. Incredibly close battle.
Yeah, I think it's it's unbelievable that we I think this year really and truly has been in such a team effort, because we didn't always have the pace. And I mean, you start every season hoping that you'll get to the end of it fighting for the championship. And we all know, having done this for so long, it just doesn't happen every year. There are so many variables, and there are so many things that that can go wrong, throughout the season. But for us to be there again is just it just shows what kind of team Wright Motorsports is.
You've raced at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. You've at Daytona. You've won Sebring. How do you rate the Petite in terms of sheer, more than anything else, mental difficulty to be able to just survive, let alone win?
Yeah, I think here for us here in North America, I think it is the absolute toughest race of the season. I think every race has their own challenges, and there's I enjoy driving at all the tracks and doing all the events. I certainly enjoy the long distance races even more so than the sprint races. But Petit Le Mans is extra special because, one, just the layout of the track. I mean, this is a real racetrack. It is that it is very high risk. When you're driving, when you're driving at the limit, and it is so narrow, so few places for the faster cars to overtake you. Mentally, it's a drag. But it's what makes it fun.
Quick backstory that you're well aware of, but my wife and I lived in Dunedin, Florida for a while, and Dunedin Cyclery was the bicycle shop right on the Pinellas Trail that we would go to. And we rented our place out for like 18 months, so we hadn't been back. I walk into the shop to make an appointment to get our bikes tuned up. And the first thing I see when I walk in is a Porsche 911 tub and all kinds. And I'm going, well, something's very different here. And the name had changed to Cafe Racer. I walk into the bike shop area itself. It's completely different. So I'm talking to the guy behind the counter, and he says, yeah, a new guy bought it. And I said, well, what's with, the Porsche sitting out there? And he said, the guy who bought it is a professional Porsche driver. And I'm going, well, I wonder who that is. And I turn around and you go walking by behind me. And I just turned and said, Jan, you've been able to marry, as it turns out, a lifelong passion for bicycling and your professional career. A great story.
Yeah, it's something that, of course, coming from Belgium, it's the land of cycling. So it's something that was always, I'd say, in my blood and in the family. But I really only fell in love with it once I moved here to Florida. My uncles back home, they all raced at a professional or semi-professional level. And they tried really hard to get me on the bike when I was younger. But the truth is that I never enjoyed riding in the cold weather.
Yep.
Even though we had to ride the bike to school every day in and out. Rain or shine, we were always on the bike. But I never got into road cycling because of the weather. And then moved here to Florida and. Within a few weeks of me moving here, that's all I started doing, and then from there, a few years later, came the idea of running or having a bike shop.
Great to visit with Jan Halen. He's a great story. He's a great guy. And if you happen to ever be in Dunedin, Florida, pop into Cafe Racer. Take a look at that wonderful bike shop with all of his racing accolades there as well. Have a great pastry and a cup of coffee. You'll enjoy every minute of it. And when we come back here to Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP, we're going to check in with Ricky Taylor about his early life in motorsports and also about his potential of winning yet another championship at the very highest levels of prototype racing here in North America. Stay with us.
The performance, the artistry in which John can handle that car is just, it's mind-blowing. I'm still in awe of what these drivers go through and certainly understand now the role that teamwork plays in the racing community.
First time ever being in a Ferrari race car, and I'm speechless, quite frankly. It was extraordinary.
Honestly, thrill of a lifetime. And that's not an exaggeration. I have a new appreciation for what fast is. And when you have the state-of-the-art technology, when you have extraordinary expertise, and when you have enormous resources, you put those together, this is what's possible. And so I'll never forget this, and I'm bringing this back and taking this to autoimmunity research.
And we're back here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. Time for us to spend a little bit of time with Ricky Taylor. Had a great chat with him that I think you're going to enjoy. He talked about being born essentially into racing royalty, and he has somehow managed to step into that with great ease and amazing success. And he also talked about what he's gone through this year, what his team has gone through, as they are in a position to win yet another championship in the International Motorsports Association's top prototype division. Here's Ricky. Ricky, you and your brother probably might define the term track brats. I mean, when your dad was racing in IMSA in the early '90s, I was announcing him back in the era. I'm dating myself here, and I remember you guys as little kids running around, and you've obviously progressed to the very top echelons of your category of the sport. But talk about immersion right from the get-go here. I mean, you grew up at the track, didn't you?
Yeah. I think my first memory of the Corvette drivers when Cadillac and Corvette shared a hospitality was Kelly Collins running in, and Jordan and I were playing on the beds, and he was trying to sleep in the middle of the night at Le Mans. So track brats, unfortunately, might have been our first reputation at the track.
A little bit too accurate, maybe, for some of the other guys of the era here. Your dad, obviously, Wayne. When I was announcing him, I mean, he was at the top of his game, won championships. So you were born into that pedigree. But at that age, did you have any understanding, really, of just how special he was as a driver? I mean, obviously, you've seen it as he progressed, and obviously in his role as a team owner, but he was special in the day.
Yeah, he tells us too. No, no, he. I mean, we probably respect it more now that we're um, living in a similar world to where he was living. He obviously had to make his name from scratch. He came from South Africa, which has a very small racing community and racing industry, and lived the American dream. Really, he moved to America. He started a team. Before starting a team, he made a career as a driver. Then started a team, and now it's one of the best teams, one of the best sports car teams in the world. And I think from every angle, he's been very inspiring from the driver's side. I think, which is what you're referring to. We just saw him kind of go off to do his thing, and if he won, that was cool, and he got a trophy. But now we're starting to see how difficult those things were, and the big race wins that he was able to accomplish, and especially from where he came from, and earning all of the steps along the way is definitely as cool as he says it is. Let's say.
By my count, you've had 9 races so far in the season. You get 350 points for a win, 35 for a pole. That's a lot of points. You and Philippe, and that's your teammate Albuquerque, are leading the points by 19. I mean, could it be any closer going into the final round of the championship? What a year. What a way to end the DPI era.
Being told right now that the 10 will enter the final race of the year, 19 points up on the 60, exactly the lead they had last year as they went to Petit Le Mans. Wow. What irony. Up the front straightaway, they just need to climb the hill, the 60, hoping the right front stays on. But for Konica Minolta, Wayne Taylor Racing, they have broken a winless streak. Philippe Albuquerque, Ricky Taylor, Acura, they take the win at Road America.
Yeah, it's such a great it summarizes what the DPI competition's been like. Really, we come into the last race. The last 3 years, it's been a battle right down to the last race weekend, and it never seems to be easy. We always wish for it to be a boring one where we just kind of escape into the distance, but it never seems to go that way. And it just says so much about the series and the level of competition in the sport that you can never let your guard down. And especially between our main rival, the 60 this year, every race has been a dogfight. We can't seem to get away from them anywhere. So to come in Petit Le Mans, if it was a normal 2-hour, 45-minute race, we'd be, amped up and excited and ready to go. And it would be a very difficult challenge. But to do it at Petit Le Mans, which is on its own such a monumental challenge with 10 hours at one of the most difficult tracks in the world, that's going to also be one of the most densely compact in terms of car count. It's going to be grueling for sure.
I've said for years that to me, it certainly seems that the Petit Le Mans, in the realm of international endurance races, and the legendary ones, from the 24-hour races to Sebring with the bumps, all of that. Mentally, the Petit Le Mans to me would seem to be probably the most taxing because of exactly what you're talking about. Immense closing speeds between the prototypes and the GT cars. Absolutely nowhere that really the track rarely is going straight. Everybody's changing directions, and it's short. And as you said, it's loaded with cars. There's no rest mentally for 10 hours, is there?
No, there isn't, and I think everybody kind of gets ramped up. It's a good thing it's the last race of the championship, because everybody kind of gets warmed up throughout the year, and it kind of builds to this sort of insane final race.
In the midst of the Motul Petit Le Mans, and we saw the craziness that happened to Helio Castroneves. Did you see the black and blue Acura flash by in there? Well, if you missed it, that was Ricky Taylor. He took the lead right there. See everybody else off to the side. Castroneves back on, but now he's going to get hung up in traffic, and that's where Taylor sneaks through. It's just using that traffic as a pick.
There's obviously the GT side, which even watching the race from outside, makes me nervous. But from inside the car, it's very intense. And the unique thing about Road Atlanta is, for some reason, most tracks, a lot of race tracks, it becomes a bit of an oxymoron that, slow is fast, or, don't overdrive the car, and, slow hands are quicker and smoother, and whatever the rest of it is. It's kind of an oxymoron at this point. But Road Atlanta doesn't play by those rules. It's, fast is fast at Road Atlanta. And the harder you push, the more the lap time is rewarded, and the faster you seem to go. The minute you take any of the pressure off, the lap time drops. And it's that way for a clear lap and for traffic, because when you're in traffic, the same rules apply. You want to get up to the GT car as quickly as possible, because people are doing rather unpredictable things at this racetrack. So being on the scene when things happen is kind of where you want to be to be able to get through it as quickly and safely as possible.
Yeah, it's a mega race. I think it is the absolute perfect place to have a championship finale, because it is the ultimate test in so many different ways: strategically, driving ability, patience. One of those things that race car drivers aren't exactly known for sometimes, going down through those S's and not, trying to stuff it in there, all those different equations. Hey, Ricky, I got to tell you, you won the championship in 2020 with Helio.
7 cars, Taylor and Helio Castroneves right behind in second, virtually assuring Acura of the Manufacturers' Championship.
In sports car racing, it's all about the manufacturers, and all the biggest manufacturers in the world are bringing the best of the best to this series.
Well, it was a great result. Obviously, as you mentioned, we want to win, but as long as we keep up, getting there, getting close, giving ourselves the opportunity to win, it will come.
Which was obviously huge. Second last year. But you and your dad and your team won the championship in the first season of DPI. You've got a chance to win it in the final season of DPI. We hope you do. We wish you the best of luck, and really appreciate you taking some time to visit with us here and sort of set the stage for what's going to be an epic finish to the DPI era. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I hope we can do it. Thanks for having me.
I'll tell you, Ricky's an amazing story, isn't he? Along with his brother Jordan and his dad Wayne, and the success they've had as a family, not always together, but always together in soul and spirit. And they all wear their emotions on the sleeve. Just a great group of people, and very, very successful for many, many years now. That wraps up our show for this week for Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. As always, we urge you to go for raceforrp.org or polychondritis.org, which is the website for the Relapsing Polychondritis Foundation, and take a look, learn more about this horrific autoimmune disorder, and see if there's anything you can do to not just help drive the awareness and the education, but maybe even to help fund the research to come up with a cause, which is still not out there, let alone a cure for the people that are suffering from this horrible disease. As always, thank you so much for joining us here on Full Throttle, powered by Race for RP. I'm Greg Creamer, and I'll see you next time.